what's going on, guys? Mike for Sim Racing 604, and today we're going to be talking about something that came up in the comments recently by a single racer. He was asking what exactly KERS was and if you should use it, and I think I can help provide some clarity on that, and we're also going to tie together DRS and MGU. So all those acronyms that if you're new to Assetto Corsa or not that familiar with sort of the higher ranking or higher speed racing leagues, you may have seen these acronyms but not sure what they mean or how they apply to your track times, that kind of thing. So we're going to take a look at that, and we will start with DRS. So DRS is the drag reduction system, and effectively what it does is it reduces the amount of rear wing that is impacting the air, or I should say how the air is impacting the rear wing. So let's just zoom around on this ASR2 championship here. So if we see the wing as it is now, this is the standard wing mode. As you're driving around, if you never deal with DRS, this is what it's going to look like. However, when we enter a DRS zone, it is going to do this. The wing pops up. This is only true on a few cars. The F138, the SF15T have it, the Formula Hybrid. If you race DTM at all, they have it, and Formula 2, and maybe a few select others. I'm not sure which at this time, but you will know right away when you load Assetto Corsa. It'll show in the bottom right corner whether or not the car has cockpit operated DRS. And yeah, so I have it mapped to a button on my wheel, so I can open it anytime I'm in the DRS zone. Keep in mind the DRS zone, and we'll get through this, or we'll talk more about it when we get out onto the track, but you'll see some white indicators on the track at certain tracks. Spa has it, Silverstone has it, Spielberg, aka Red Bull Ring, has it. And a few others in game, I'm sure, have DRS zones. So typically it's marked with some white signage on the road, and as you pass those signs, oftentimes you'll get an indicator on your wheel or on the nose of the car telling you are in the DRS zone. And when you're in the DRS zone, you simply press whatever button you have mapped DRS. The wing will pop up and you will get more straight line speed. And then as you enter the next corner and hit the brakes, the wing will once again flap down to give you the necessary downforce to handle corners. So obviously it helps with straight line speed. It impacts you negatively on cornering because there's less downforce on the rear tires, therefore less grip. So yeah, let's get out there on the track and talk a bit more about DRS, and we'll see how it impacts your straight line speed. Alright, so we're just coming down the back straight here at Spa, and we're going to be going into a couple of DRS zones. The first one I'm going to ignore, but you'll notice the DRS signage on the road. But what we're going for here is we want to track our speed at the end of the Aedion straight. So first things first, we're in a DRS zone now, so you see that white DRS lettering on the wheel, and then it just went out, so that indicates we're out of the DRS zone. But very shortly you'll see some DRS signs on the left and right of the track as I exit this corner ahead. And you'll see the signs, and then the light will illuminate on the wheel. So our exit speed entering the DRS is 265-ish, and I'm not going to use DRS. The DRS light is on indicating I'm in the zone, but I'm not using it. And we finished the straight at 292 kilometers an hour. So through the magic of YouTube, we're going to do a jump cut here to the end of this lap. And yeah, we'll try that again, except this time with DRS, and we'll see what it does. So we're going to try to get as close to 265 entering the DRS zone as we can, just to make this a fair comparison, and then see how it compares at the end of the straight to the 292 kilometers an hour we were able to achieve without DRS. Okay, so we are rounding the final corner here and getting ready to attempt that same Eau Rouge Radion combination and just see how the DRS affects. So we're going to be, whoops, missed my corner there. We're going to be looking for that DRS light on the wheel, and as soon as that illuminates, I'm going to press my mapped DRS button on my wheel, and that's going to open that rear wing, and we'll see what it does to our speed. So let's see, we want to be somewhere around the 265 entering DRS zone. Perfect almost, and DRS is on, as you can see by that light on the wheel. We have passed 292, we are up to 2305 before we enter the braking zone. So there you go, we gained an extra 13 kilometers an hour just like that. So depending on the car, you're going to get more or less of an effect, but that's a good demonstration, I think, of DRS. So I'll take you around one more time with another jump cut and just help you identify that DRS signage. So stand by. Okay, so down the front straight we go. Around this hairpin, and I'm going to take this real slow up the hill. Just somewhat sacrilege for Rouge, but want to illustrate a point. So right down 2 gears here. So you'll see as I exit this corner, you can see just to the left of my nose there, you see the DRS sign, and then there's another one on the right. And now watch my wheel as I pass these DRS signs. DRS zone. So I can now press the DRS button, and my rear wing has been lifted, so I will have reduced aerodynamic drag. So that is DRS in a nutshell, and let's jump over and talk about KERS. Alright, so KERS, K-E-R-S, Kinetic Energy Reclaim System or Recapture System. It's a technology that is not actually foreign to road cars. So something like a Prius or any hybrid vehicle actually reclaims energy from the brakes, transfers it to a battery, and that battery effectively drives a motor which gives you added power. So we can actually have a reduced engine size, and by engine I'm referring to the 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, whatever it may be, standard engine for the car. And so the KERS, the KERS system, is an additional electric motor that helps drive more power out of the engine system. So we have the standard onboard engine plus the electronic motor. And again, we recharge the battery that feeds the electronic motor when we brake. Unsurprisingly, it takes a lot of energy to stop a vehicle, and especially when you get into racing cars like this. I'm on board the F138 now, and going from 300 plus kilometers an hour to perhaps 100 or less takes a tremendous amount of energy, and this car will actually recapture some of that energy and use it for an electronic motor. So you'll notice at the center of your screen my gear indicator. Whoops. So I have two additional indicators there that you wouldn't normally see, a green bar and a yellow bar. So the green bar is referring to the amount of deploy that I'm using. So as we brake, that green bar is going to go up, indicating the battery has more charge. As it gets deployed, as we use it to drive a electric motor to give us more power, that green bar will fall. The yellow bar immediately inside of that is how much deploy we have left on this lap. There are racing rules that govern how much deploy you can use in a given lap, and if we exceed that, we will just cease the ability to use any more KERS. So if that's a bit confusing, I will go through it. So we're going into the long straight, same thing we looked at in the ASR2. So we're going to go up that straight. The first time we will look at our speeds, and this is not actually a great indicator because I'm at a complete stop with cold tires, but we're going to go up that straight again and just kind of get an idea of the speeds we're able to achieve, and then we will whip around again and deploy our KERS and see what it does for our speed. Something else to keep in mind is that KERS is unlike DRS. When you press DRS, you press it once, the flap opens, and then you can just forget about it, and it'll disengage when you're out of the DRS zone. With KERS, you have to hold down the button. If you press it once, you're just going to get a quick burst of energy, but what you want is, in most cases, a long sustained output of energy. So you're going to hold down that KERS button. I'm running a T300 wheel, so I have a DRS button mapped to it and a KERS button mapped to it. So, oh, by the way, we will be able to see a DRS indicator on this wheel as well. I mentioned that it's not always as obvious as the big letters DRS. This wheel in the F138 has a little green light on the left that you will see illuminate when we're in the DRS zone. But moving on from DRS, let's get into KERS. So as I said, I'm going to take this up the straight first time and just get an indication of what kind of speeds this car is capable of, and then we'll go around again and try it with KERS deploy and see what it does to our speed. So let's get into it. Alright, so I decided the probably more logical way to do this would be actually to use warm tires and not from a standing start, and then do the same with the KERS boost. So we're coming into the first lap, and again we will do this without the KERS as sort of a control, and we will note our speeds at the entry and exit to the DRS zone, and then compare it to the next lap where we'll do a KERS boost. Okay, so no DRS, so 274 into the DRS zone. And without the KERS, we actually lost speed and finished at about 272. So I'm going to try and match that 274 entry speed and try and shift right around the same point to make it as close as possible. So we will skip ahead here. Okay, so up the front straight here. And again, we're going to try and get as close to the 274 entry speed as we can get, and then see if we can finish at a higher speed. So I will deploy the KERS pretty much in time with the DRS. So much slower entry speed, 264 there, deploying KERS all the way, and we finish up at 287. So obviously a massive difference there. Even though I kind of messed it up and entered at a much lower speed, I finished at a much higher speed. So I think that proves the point. Ideally we would have been perfectly consistent, but anyway, you can see it made a huge difference. Now, you'll notice that as I brake into these corners, the green bar is going back up, but the yellow bar does not. So the green bar is boosting every time I brake hard, and that is of course the battery charge level. Now let's say I wanted to just basically hold down the KERS, because you might be asking yourself, it makes the car faster, why wouldn't I just tape the KERS button down and always be faster? The problem with that is you have limited deploy, a couple problems with that, but most notably you have limited deploy per lap. So you notice that the green bar is going up as I brake, indicating recharge, but the yellow bar does not. The yellow bar only resets when you pass the start finish line. So the yellow bar is indicating how much deploy we have, so left for the lap, that is. So I'm going to use the rest of it here. As you can see, the yellow bar is gone. Even though I'm holding the KERS button, we're not getting anything out of it because I've used all the KERS I'm allowed to use for this lap. So You'll notice I have a fully stocked battery at this point, and I will get my yellow bar back as soon as I cross the start-finish line, meaning that I can deploy again. So that is KERS in a nutshell. So we will finish up with a quick lesson on MGU. If you're not looking to run the SF15T or Formula Hybrid, you can probably skip the MGU section right after you hit the subscribe button, of course. But for those curious about MGU, I'll do a quick lesson on it here. Okay, so here we are in the pits back at Spa. This is the SF15T now, so we were in the F138 last time. So the SF15T and the Formula Hybrid represent sort of the next generation in KERS, and they call it MGU, or Motor Generator Unit, and we have an MGU-K and an MGU-H, as you can see on the screen here. So the MGU-K refers to the kinetic reclaim of power, meaning the brakes, and the H refers to heat, meaning it's capturing heat from that high revving engine to restore power to the battery. And not dissimilar to the KERS, the battery is what powers the motor, and the motor works in conjunction with the standard engine to generate our acceleration. So it's a bit more complex. You'll notice on the KERS they were static values, so we did not get to change how much is returned to the engine under braking, or how much is deployed from the motor, how much is returned to the battery under braking, or how much is deployed from the motor under acceleration when we hit the KERS button. With the newer generation cars and the more advanced KERS systems, or MGU as they call it, we actually have that control now. So as you can see, there's 4 variables here, all tied to electronics. MGU-K delivery refers to how much we output. So as I said in the last one, when we're accelerating, we hold the KERS button, it makes us faster at a set rate. We can actually change how much that is, and we no longer have to hold the KERS button. So the lowest value is charging, meaning that there is no deployment, and any braking we do is going to return energy, and at no point during acceleration do we get a boost from this motor. Second from that is balance low. So there's values to these. You can look these up online, but in general, the higher we go on this scale, the more deployment we're going to get. And at the extreme end of the scale, where we are now, the hot lap, meaning we're going to basically deploy our whole battery within 1 lap. So obviously great for hot lapping. That may be self-explanatory. Something important if you're looking to hot lap in this car or the Formula Hybrid, and you leave the pits in hot lap mode, you're going to enter lap 2 with nothing in your battery, of course, because the hot lap mode is maximum deploy and tries to use the whole battery in a single lap. So you don't want to do that. On your out lap, make sure you have it set. There's no reason really, I guess you could make an argument for warming tires, but there's no reason really to set it to anything other than charging. And then as you're rounding kind of the final corner, good idea to, if you have a button mapped on your wheel, as I do for MGU-K delivery, flip it over to hot lap, and then on your second lap you will have full deployment of your MGU system. So that's the delivery. That's how the motor, the electric motor, is deploying its power. The Mgu Recovery, it's fairly self-evident based on what I've said, but it's how much is being returned to the battery under braking. So we can set this. It's set by default to a neutral value of 50%. It goes, of course, as high as 100 and as low as 0. So 0 means there is no recovery, so it is maximum speed. Keep in mind, the higher the value, the more braking there's going to be. If you set it to kind of an extreme end of the scale, then you will get a whole lot of extra braking power, and you're going to slow the car right down. It's great for regenerating the battery, not great for speed, of course, so you'll have to tinker with it. For hot lapping, you generally see people set this either off or very low, probably 20% or less. because it is a good idea to have some level of recovery so that you don't blow out your whole battery early in the lap. But in general, the ideal, if you're hot lapping, would be to use exactly the battery charge in one lap. For racing, you're going to want to set this higher and try and make it so your battery never runs out. The next one we have is MGU mode. So I told you it's recovering heat from the exhaust gases, and then that's going to be returned to the car in one of two fashions. One, is it going to be used to charge the battery, or two, is it going to be used to drive the motor? So by default it sets a battery. Pretty good idea to leave it there. It's nice to have a little bit of extra charge. This thing is not going to make, the MGU system that is not going to make a massive impact to your acceleration. So good idea to just have that extra little, it's more than a trickle, but that extra little bit of recovery go into the battery. That's what I recommend. But again, for hot lapping, you might want to just go motor, because there's no point in finishing a hot lap with anything left in the tank, as it were. Brake engine, I don't know why they worded it like that, but it's basically how much slowing the car is going to do and recovery on its own. Not dissimilar to engine braking, where we're, for example, heading down a hill, we downshift, we release the clutch, and we get higher revs, and the car slows without actually engaging the brakes. So this car and the Formula Hybrid, and perhaps select others, can do this automatically for you to varying rates in 13 steps for whatever reason. Obviously, the lower the value, the less engine braking there is. So it matters to coasting. Anytime you're not under hard braking or hard acceleration, the engine brake is going to matter, or brake engine, I suppose. But for most of us, if you're new to this car, you won't really feel a difference. But as you get more accustomed to it, you will feel a difference. Something like the Pouhon corner at Spa is a great example of where you might feel the engine brake, because you're partially coasting, depending on your setup, through that corner before you get back on the accelerator. And if you have this set to a very high level, you will feel the car decelerate more as you let off the gas before you go at it again. So as I say, you may feel it in that situation, but yeah, it's a good idea to probably set it to somewhere neutral. Again, lower on the scale if you're doing hot lapping, and probably slightly higher on the scale if you're doing standard racing. So that's pretty much MGU explained. I don't see the point in doing a demo of this. I'm sure you guys understand that generally, as we move these bars to the left, we're going to get more deployment and less recovery. Excuse me, the lower three, we're going to get less recovery, and the upper one, it's the opposite of what I just said. So if we go further left, we're going to get more less deployment and be able to keep more in the battery. So yeah, it would matter to your overall lap time. I'm not going to bore you with 2 full laps, nor am I consistent enough with this car where you could necessarily see a consistent difference. So just know that for MGU delivery, this top value here, the further left you go, the more we're going to be able to keep in the battery. The further right we go, the more deployment we have, and the faster we're going to go. And for these 3 values here, I'm saying this all wrong, I apologize. Okay, so let's try this again. So the MGU recovery, a lower value or to the left, is going to generate less return to the battery. A higher value to the right is going to return more energy to the battery, and that is the same with the brake engine here. A further left value is going to slow the car less and generate less to the battery. A further right value is going to send more energy to the battery but slow the car more. And then the MGU mode in the middle here, we can set to battery or motor. Battery is going to obviously generate a little bit more return to the battery, and a value set to motor is going to skip the battery altogether and just deploy through the motor. So I hope I've made that sufficiently complicated for you, but it is really 4 values. The only thing I generally map to my wheel is the MGU delivery. As I said, if you're out there hot lapping, I like to set it to charging, and then as I'm coming into the final straight, just hit the button and it flips it over, because it's in here we can only go all the way left, it stops, all the way right, it stops. However, on your wheel, if you are in charging mode on your outlap, you can just hit one button and it flips it over to hot lap mode. So I just hit that one button, then I'm in hot lap mode, and then I'm good to go for my hot lap. Mgu Recovery, Mgu Mode, and brake engine, I don't map. You can map it to your wheel, but I wouldn't really, or I don't know if you can map Mgu actually, but you can map these other 2 values, as far as I know, to your wheel. I wouldn't really see the point in that, though. That's something you're going to have to tinker with in the pits. So that is it for MGU. As I said, a little bit confusing, but just know all we're doing, it's similar to KERS. KERS should have been fairly simple to understand for you. MGU is just you're able to adjust the values of recovery, the rates of recovery, and the rates of deployment for your electric motor system. Whew. All right, so I hope this has been valuable to you in getting to know DRS, KERS, and the MGU system on the modern F1 cars. KERS typically is only on a few cars. Oh, by the way, I should mention that I believe it's the McLaren P1 has 2 modes of KERS delivery or MGU delivery. So if you have a button mapped, I think it alternates between charging and hot lap. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 modes of MGU delivery in the SF15T. The P1, if I'm not mistaken, has 2. So good idea if you're driving that car for great distances or anything like that, or going for speed, that you have a button mapped, and just make sure you stay on top of your battery charge level. And I think that's going to do it. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Thank you so much for bearing with me through this explanation of acronyms. Hopefully I made it a little more clear for you, and thank you for watching.